Hi, everybody. Welcome. I'm Barry Kostrinsky. This is November 8th, and tonight we were going to have Bonnie Leibowitz, but she rescheduled because her photographer hadn't gotten back to her with the photos of her exhibit. She'll be presenting another week. Tonight we have, as usual, Maux Kelly modeling for us. And since we don't have anybody sharing screen, you can very easily highlight her screen in the top right by clicking on the three dots next to the word mute, and then they'll say something like pin video, and then her screen will become large. So I just want to welcome everybody. I know we're a small group, but I think sometimes small groups can get a lot done. Maybe I'm making an excuse, but I want to welcome you, and this is an open dialogue. I'd say if anybody has a thought, obviously feel free at any time to jump in. And I'll repeat, since there are a few new people here, the part of the idea about having a model while we talk is to see if you can use maybe both sides of your brain at the same time, and also maybe have the creative environment creating influence how you draw, and possibly vice versa, speaking from the creative process while you're in it. I will say it's much harder than I thought it would be as an experiment. And for me, it depends on how I'm drawing. If I'm drawing loose and gestural and sort of listening as I'm drawing, and I mean listening to the drawing and not doing fast gestural drawing, but a somewhat slower gestural drawing, I'm able to really listen and draw and feed. If I'm doing a tighter line, a more analytic line, that's a little more like this, I find, no, I cannot listen. And so, like anything, you have a thesis, then you try it, and you learn so much more from trying it. And what sounds simple often becomes very complicated in a very good way. So that's the goal. And as well, we get drawings out of this, and I like that very much. I will say it's been recommended, and I'm going to take this on. I think Michael mentioned it, that I'm going to put a segment on my website where you could submit one drawing, digital image, and with details, size and price, and I'll post it up. And it'll be sort of a gallery of imagery from these life drawings. It should be life drawings from these events. And I'll offer them for sale. And I'll let the artist charge whatever price they like. And I'll ask for the artist, if they like to donate a percentage to me. So no fixed percentage. And I sort of like it, sort of an open format. So keep that in mind. If you want to send me a drawing, the way I work is once I get the drawing, that'll make me set up the section on my website, and we'll grow it from there. And of course, at any time, you could sort of say, I don't want that drawing up anymore, take it down. If you like, get another one. And so it's a way to try and enter the marketplace, and also to see the work next to other work, which is, sort of always a great experience. Lily, can you hear us?
Yes, yes, I can.
Nice to see you.
You too.
I'd say I hate to, but I love to put people on the spot.
Yeah, that's okay.
And I have you set to speak. Which date is it? I mean,
The 22nd, you said.
22nd of November. You
Right.
want to just give a, as we're talking, just give a brief outline, or just a very light outline of what you like.
Okay, well, I studied painting a million years ago when I was young. And I also made Super 8 movies at the same time. And I always kind of did a mixed bag of things, like collage, installation, even before video installation became very prominent. And in the mid 90s, when computer programming came in with the editing programs, I really went for that because it was so much easier to do a film with video because of, it cut your costs, except for, of course, the computer and all that. But I really enjoyed that. You can look at my website. If you spell my name correctly, Lili, white.com, you can see little videos and some other stuff on there. But what I'm going to talk about next week is what I did during the COVID lockdown, which was I wrote a story that I kind of rewrote as a film script and also as a theater piece. But basically the story is the same. And one thing that I did is I made these illustrations to go along with it. And they are up right now in the Tompkins Square Library. And I gave a little talk there a couple weeks ago. So that's what I was going to do, show you the drawings and tell you the story in a very loose way. And that's about it. It has, I think you'll find it interesting.
Oh, I know I will. I know Lily's work. I know Lily has a wide body of work, and I sort of respect that in an artist. And I've found just about all of it, I'd say all of it interesting. And I know mostly her two-dimensional work, but I have in one incarnation of Haven Arts, I have exhibited Lily, and we had a great video piece that was quite interesting. And I would say, yes, you were early on into the video arts in a good way.
Yeah, and
Talk
also
to me about a million years ago, you said. So is this when you were a Neanderthal, or were you a mix of sapien?
I guess I was a Neanderthal. But remember also, Barry, you exhibited some work I did that was ink and oil pastel. When you were at your first space.
Oh.
And so there was other stuff, besides video that you did, that you exhibited, that was that I did. And they were, those works were inspired by drawing with ink, like in a Chinese calligraphy kind of form. And I studied briefly how to make a good line in Chinese calligraphy. So when I did that, that was very interesting to me. And so when I did those works, and you can see the stuff on my website, when I did those works, I would make a layer of strokes with black ink, and then I would make a layer on top of it with vermilion ink, and then I would cover the whole paper with oil pastel. And the pastels I used were iridescent. There was like maybe 8 colors, like mint green, peach. There was 2 kinds of golds. There was a silver and a blue. There was like a reddish one. And when these colors would go over the black ink, it looked metallic and reflective of whatever the color was. So I just love doing these. And then after I did that, I would carve through the oil pastel to make another layer. And all these layers kind of interacted with each other. And they had this shimmer. And at times, if the light was hitting them a certain way, you couldn't really see them, because the shimmer would like completely obliterate the ink, which I just love that. So I love doing these. I did these for, I'm not sure how many years, at least 6 years. They got into some really good shows, juried by some people that I really respected, like Donald Cuspit,
Oh, sure.
Ursula von Rodingsvard. So anyway, I love doing these. And one year I was at the College Art Association conference, and I would love going to that because it was like stimulating to my brain to like listen to people's papers. And you got a sense of what was going to be hot that year because that's how people were aiming their papers. But they also had a book fair there and a art materials sale room where everything was at a discount. So I was looking around at the art materials, and I ran into this man, and he was from Golden Art Supplies.
Oh,
I believe it. No, sorry. Seignelay, who was making the products that I was using of the varied colors of the oil pastel that I was using in my work. So I saw this guy had his name tag on, and I went over to him and I said, I love your product. It is like the backbone of what I'm making right now. It's like the main ingredient. And he grabbed my shoulder and he looked down at the floor. And I thought, what is with this guy, And he goes, well, I'm really happy that you like our products.
yeah, I
So-
think, I
So
think
then we parted ways, and shortly after,
you gave
all
it
of those oil pastels were no longer available except for maybe 3 colors: gold, white, blue, gold, silver, blue, or something. And I was like so dismayed, and that's kind of like when I pretty much stopped doing that series.
I thought you were gonna say something else, because once I met somebody from Golden, when I was at an art show. I don't even know if I met him, but they saw my work, they liked it, they sent me like all this free paint. And it an artist getting free paint, that's like a alcoholic going to a bar and it's like everything is free to drink.
Yeah.
So it really it makes you feel much better than if someone gave you the money to go buy that stuff. So I in an odd way, I felt indebted, though I never paid the debt, but I was just really happy. I'm sorry the story didn't end the right way, but I guess is looking down at the floor, it's the tell.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's sad. That's sad. Michael, how important are materials to you?
Well, hi everybody. Yeah, it's interesting because I used to go to CAA just to go into that room and get the materials. They always had good sales and stuff. But,
It's like heaven, like you're there and it's like, ooh,
I used to go to the a thing called Southern Graphics Council, which is a printmaking conference where they get together once a year in some university, and they always had like the reps there, and I used to get all the Hahnemühle paper really cheap. Like every year, the guy would look at me, oh, here he comes again, trying to get freebies. And I'll get as much free stuff as I could because it was the best price. You could buy all kinds of stuff. I think it's interesting that materials orient your work, kind of. If you're working with a certain clay, the piece is going to go a certain way, right? If you're going with porcelain or something, and the same thing with like drawing on the computer is going to get different results than drawing freehand. I had an interesting day today. for some reason I decided that I could be the teacher of this high school arts development program. So all these high school teachers from all over Long Island came to this place, and each room they worked with an artist to kind of give them a day where they can make work and get ideas to teach their students. So I did a five-hour art workshop with 5 people. So, and it was really interesting because the materials did influence what people made. You know, I did a collage. It was very different what they did with collage than what they did with the automatic drawing. But it was interesting. I don't know. Sorry, guys. I don't have much to say today. I'm a little bit wiped.
That's good. No, that's, we can always open up a can of Michael. And, those were good thoughts, Michael. So thank you.
It was interesting to see how they were so happy just to have to have a day where they can make stuff, and they didn't have to, a lot of them had discipline problems with the kids. The kids had short attention spans. They just weren't really into it. And, I think they were just relieved to have a day where they could just, let loose a little bit. And some of them, the ones that I didn't think were, had much to say, really made some really amazing work.
Do you think when you're an art teacher, you sort of sacrifice your own art because not just the time, but it's sort of like you have to teach, or maybe you don't, but maybe I'm mistaken, but it seems like you have to teach a skill or a concept. And when we work as artists, maybe we incorporate a lot more. We incorporate play, we incorporate freedoms. And I guess that's the key thing that's missing in a scholastic environment. And I'm probably wrong. It really depends on the teacher, but I've always had this thesis that if you're a writer and you're teaching writing in high school, let's say, although it may apply to college, that it's going to hurt your own writing because you're going to be focusing on certain rules. I'm just curious if anyone's.
I don't know if I think that, because for me, where I went to school, it was purely academic. And so we did learn, if you went to certain teachers, you could learn a method that they were teaching. And I ended up using one of those methods when I taught people. And I actually would like teaching. This was at the Y where I taught. So it wasn't like people were getting a grade or anything. They were there to kind of have fun. And some people liked what I was offering, and some people would just balk at it. So I think it's, it depends on however the student takes it. It's kind of like up to them, I think.
I think for the student, yes, I agree with you for the student, but I'm worrying about the impact, or
well, for me, I kind of liked it because it was like for instance, if we had a model, I would point out certain things to the class, like see Maureen's knee there, see how it's sticking out. Look at the negative space around it to get the proper relation of the knee to the thigh that's in back of that. So I was giving them tools that they could work with. They could take it or leave it. And it sharpened my eye, even though I wasn't there drawing. So it was kind of, fun for me to do that.
and I get that, because I may have told the story, but I was once working at like in a volunteer setting in a kids at risk program in the South Bronx, and a kid said to me, "How do you draw a nose?" And that's not my strength, doing realism. I'm more of an expressive drawer, but at times I can knock out very realistic work, it made me like I'm teaching him, and I like did the best nose I've ever done because I had to focus on, you know, the essential shapes and things like that. So I think it really can help you. And I guess my point is, well, again, often you have a thesis, and it depends how you use it and incorporate it. And sure, it can hurt your art in ways, but it can also help it. I do want to share an interesting story. You know, I teach painting at a very generic sip and plate, sip and drink and paint place. And they're usually all neophytes, and a lot of times it's children. But of course, I throw questions at them. And I had a group of children, and we were doing a gumball machine with circles in it. And I asked the question, I said, this is for the parents too. Who's the contemporary artist that's known for working with circles or dots? And nobody seems to answer. And then this like 6-year-old girl raises her hand and says, Kusama and Kandinsky. And of course, I was thinking of Damien Hirst, but she was dead right about Kusama. And Kandinsky is, I give it to her too. But the fact that she pronounced, yes, the fact that she pronounced Kandinsky right, that's something in itself. So I went later to the mother, because I knew who the mother was. And I said to her, how did your daughter know that answer? And she said, and this is why I'm telling the story. She said, they have a great art teacher in their school, and they work on general principles, and the art teacher teaches to them like their college level in a way. And I've heard this before when I've seen kids answer questions that they shouldn't be able to answer at that age. And I've asked the parents, they go, oh, they have a great art teacher. And I can't emphasize enough how important a great teacher is versus an average teacher, the impact it has. I mean, just think of that answer from a 6-year-old. Now, by the way, she could not paint to save her life. There was no brush control. You know, she was very much at a young age. And by the way, the no brush control was working against her. You know, no brush control can work for you. She didn't have that skill. And, you know, it's just amazing. I could see this girl, you know, she had to be brilliant. There's no question about it. The other kids were in with, who's going to remember those names? The parents said, when she comes home, she has like theoretical discussions about art history with us and concepts.
Wow.
And I said to the parents, you know, it's the impact of the teacher, and you don't realize how much children can absorb. And I saw this with my kids growing up once when they couldn't speak. And I said to my ex-wife, I said to her, you know, I know they understand us. Watch this. I go, Adam and Ariel, walk over to the stereo. They got up and they walked over to the stereo. And that's a light example. And so I think often schools teach down to the kids.
Yes, absolutely.
If they just taught way above their heads, so a 50 was a great score, that means they have a lot more to learn. No one should be getting hundreds and 95s. And then they just scale it. So it forms, so a 50 could be an A, something like that. I did a math class in college that was so hard, a 60 was like an A, you know, and that's the point. It's got to push you to think. And the kids, they can be very brilliant. And our concepts, as much as they're not necessarily hard concepts, they can absorb those. Now, they cannot draw like Michelangelo. I'm sorry, that they can't do. But they can investigate ideas, and they'll see it through their eyes, and they'll see it much wider than you and I see it. Because, you know, we have blinkers on from education, socialization, and from everything else. And we're artists. We have wide eyes, but it's nothing compared to a kid. And I think as you grow up, it just all gets narrowed in a way, even though vocabulary expands. It seems like thoughts contract.
Yeah, there I've heard people say, well, we don't, about kids, we don't want to teach them that because if there's some of them that can't do it, then they're like, feel bad. But you know what I mean? But it dumbs like everybody down.
That's one of the
The
things I
world
tried
we
today.
live in.
I tried to do that. I talked about that today in the class. And, you know, because I was talking about biomorphism and automatic drawing and asemic writing. And I basically said, you know, these are things that you can teach that any kid can do. There's no right or wrong. There's no good or bad.
Michael, how old were those kids today?
Well, these were teachers, and most of them were teaching
Okay,
high
that's why I was
school.
confused. Okay.
From 8th grade to 12th grade. They were high school teachers. And, you know, I'm sure they have, you know, in their curriculums, the kids have to be able to draw a face and be able to draw a shoe. You know, they probably have stuff from the 1950s that are probably still in their curriculum that they're stuck with, you know. But this was for the, you know, my program was designed for the AP kids, the ones that could grasp some of these other concepts. I had a mixed bag. I had a different, all the teachers were a different range, but that was the way they pitched the class. But, and I said to him, I said, listen, you know, this can, you know, so everybody was doing this systemic writing. That's how I started the class.
Can you describe what's systemic writing?
Asemic, AESEMIC, asemic. So the idea is that it's drawing, it's kind of it's writing, it's kind of an art form where you're writing with, and the characters have no definition. It's not like you're drawing like you know, like in a Chinese character for house, you memorize how to, the first part and the second part of a Chinese character, and you draw it. This is, for lack of a better word, it's like a small composition that's in the form of a Chinese character, and it's organized in a certain way on the page, but it's not a literal, there's no definition of what they are. They're just like little abstract compositions. And the idea is that, you know, what I'm thinking is these things are a way to express your subconscious intention. So you're using the parameters of writing, but you're doing abstractions within the parameters of writing. So that each person, you know, would just, if they were doing this and they said, I'm going to put 50 of these objects on a page, and they're going to organize it either vertically or horizontally or left to right or right to left, and then they make these things, it's a way of like, it's an exercise, a mental exercise to create these little mini compositions and to create relationships between the compositions, whatever happens to be. So, you know, everybody was doing it. It was interesting because each of the 5 people I had, there were 5 people in my group, interpreted it in a different way. And then at the end of that, I had them all make one giant character on the page, and then they took that one character and then they brought color in, and I said, okay, now let's take that and finish the composition. As if those little characters are like little compositions, enlarge one and make it into a composition. And the thing of the idea of it is, again, is like, you're taking away the judgment of something that's good or bad. It's like, oh, you draw like Michelangelo, you're elevated, or you draw like, you know, I'm trying to think of like R. Crumb or something like that. You know, it takes away those definitions, so everybody can do this, and it equals the playing field. And this way, each person can find their own voice. They can find through that abstraction, they can find their own compositional exercises. And then they can always learn how to draw a face. I mean, if you have to study that, if that's what you want to do, you'll take that skill and you'll acquire that skill, because that you decide that you need that to take what your initial abstract inspiration and develop it into wherever you want to take it.
You know, you make a good point, because I've seen this with my granddaughter, and I've seen this with kids. They're their own worst critic, and they very quickly will tell you, as my granddaughter, when I'm having catch, so I'm not good at catching. The girl's like 4.5 years old, and she's already aware that she's lacking in a skill, and she's then reinforcing not being good. It's almost like punishing herself. Likewise, when I see kids that I'm teaching painting to, I can see those that get upset and know they don't have the hand-eye coordination of the person next to them. And, we're setting up the better drawing for success, the better drawer, and the one who is having problems is, it's almost emphasizing. So I applaud you for that project where you break it down. Now, I have taught ceramics at a camp, and I had a kid who was a real problem for the group outside of the ceramics class. But when she came to ceramics, that's where she shined. And so art is often a space where a child is not performing in mathematics or science or in certain socialization skills. They're then performing and looked up to by peers. And so it forms a valuable function for those kids. And this girl, I know it was an important thing for her. And by the way, she was quite brilliant at what she did. She really was. When a kid's got it, and it is rare. We sort of assume all kids are artists, like Picasso said, or I'm paraphrasing. That is not the case. They have as much self-doubt as we do, and they have as much, obviously control is what they're looking for, and that's very hard in the brush. You do get some others who freely express, and I get others who I know are hiding from the fact that they can't copy an image, and so they're saying, "Oh, I'm allowed to paint what I want," and of course they are, but I know they're not really being honest, and they're sort of hiding from doing what they think is bad, and going off on a tangent, which is a good tangent with the right intention, but a bad tangent. And again, I'm polarizing my views, good and bad, and my son has pointed out to me about being judgmental, and it's sort of the wrong language and sort of the wrong thoughts. So I share my old man Neanderthal views with you all, because Lily and I grew up in the year 900,000 BC.
But I still think that this process of like democratizing the creative process eliminates kind of this hierarchical system of judgment. And I think that if they do this a while and there is no judgment at that point, eventually everybody can acquire the skill set that one person might have a natural inclination to. But if you already predetermine that the one person has the talent and the others don't, of course, yeah, then you dissuade the other people from trying.
Yeah,
And
When-
once you do that, you've game's over. The kid is already changed. They can't be a poet. They can't be a writer. And yeah, I think that they have enough obstacles of their own instead of us instilling obstacles upon them. They already, like you said, they already have all these insecurities and all these other things. And if you can figure out some kind of like process where they can like deconstruct all the insecurities that they've already taken. My niece was a very sweet kid. I remember she was in 4th grade, and she was like, "I'm stupid." And I said, "Why are you stupid?" She says, "Well, I'm in math and I can't do the math and I'm stupid." And she used to sit and write poetry, and she's a very sensitive kid, and she was kind of an art person. And I said, "No, you're not stupid. You're just like, that's not your natural way of learning. And the way they're teaching you analytical. Maybe if they taught mathematics in a poetic form, it would become, you'd have a way to access that information." And I used to date somebody from Paris. In Paris, at some point you take this test, the baccalaureate, and some kids go this way towards mathematics, and some kids go this way towards the humanities, and that's it. They in 7th grade they differentiate and they travel in different directions. They don't have to be mathematicians because that's not their natural inclination.
You know, you make a good point about the art, because in general, even at the fine art level, you're expected to master these certain old school skills, and then you have the freedom to go outside the skill set. Whereas you're right, it would be better to start the other way. And then everyone not only builds confidence, but they get like larger core principles that are almost more important than perspective and shading and technique. And then they'll have a bigger view, and then they can jump in if they want to realism or drawing a figure in a way that, you know, Western art at least traditionally views the figure. Now, obviously, contemporary art is quite different. There's quite a different set of you know, what's acceptable now. It seems like there's a trend now for, I've always said surrealism is a big trend, but there's a different kind of surrealism going on where people are drawing nature. And you mentioned Art Crumb. It's almost like Art Crumb, but it's like a surreal nature, whether it's the colors they're combining or the forms. And it's sort of like, I don't know if it's Ken Price I'm thinking of, the potter, the way he does his ceramics. It's an interesting trend. There's one artist who is very hardly known. I saw his art at the National Arts Club, and then he got picked up by Almina Reich, and his work selling for $300,000-$400,000. And I'd say he typifies that trend. I see Karen Lynch doing it, although she's not at that level. Aya Wallace, somebody I follow on Instagram in, I think, England, is doing it brilliantly. It's a micro trend, but you know, there are a lot of micro trends in the art world, but it's one that, you know, it's an interesting one. I think you'll see more of it. Regina, have you seen any interesting art shows recently? Let's see, I'll ask you to unmute. I have you on mute. Just one sec.
Yeah, I actually made a point to go see the Myra Kalman show. I've really become very appreciative of her work recently. Do you know who she is?
I do not.
All right, Myra Kalman, she does actually, all I know of her work is her smaller gouache paintings. And she illustrated this wonderful book called The Autobiography of Gertrude Stein by The Autobiography of Alice B. Toklas. And it was written by Gertrude Stein, and Myra Kalman illustrated it. And I thought she was just delightful. She does really, I only saw, you know, small. The show actually that I saw was Mary Ryan Gallery. Yeah, Mary Ryan Gallery. And they were all in just 7x10 size ones, but she has a very natural, lovely way of working. And I've become, as I said, I've become interested in doing smaller work lately because I'm home more and I don't want to not be able to do work while I'm here in this room. And I don't get to my studio every day. So I'm beginning to work smaller. And she's I think you should check her out. She's a very delightful, intelligent work. The work, it looks effortless, you know, which I think is wonderful. It's just there, and it's slowly. So yeah, that was the last thing that I saw. Actually, I went to see that yesterday, day before, something like that.
Regina, can you type her name into the chat?
Sure. I can spell it. I'll try to spell it. I just sent you a message because I'm really overdue. I really have to leave, but I will do this first. All right. So it's to who can see. I'll do it so that how do I do it so that everybody can hear everyone? I think it's Maira Kalman, 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 and she's at Mary Ryan.
If you get it close enough, I'll throw it into a Google
Yeah.
and then I'll post it up.
Yeah, at
Well,
Mary
that's nice.
Ryan Gallery, it's on 26th Street. You know, 515, a low number in the 500, yeah. You know, it's nothing earth shaking, okay? It's nothing new, it's just really well done. Really, oh, the show is called Women Holding Things. So, you know, you have a picture of this woman who's holding her cat and this one's holding this. And then all of a sudden there's one of this woman who's holding her child while they're getting murdered by the Nazis. Okay, I mean, so it's like, wow, you know, she's pretty neat. She was married to a very famous graphic artist, Tibor Kalman. And I don't know if you know the MoMA umbrella. It's black with the blue sky and clouds on the inside. It's really pretty well known. That was her husband. And so I met up with her when I worked at MoMA at that time. So I met them then, and I was, you know, I didn't know anything about her, but lately she's become kind of more and more in my face, you know. And I would recommend, if you want to read about early 20th century art people, to read this wonderful book. It's called the Autobiography of Alice B. Toklas. And the illustrated version is illustrated by Myra Kalman. And it's a delightful book. You know, there she goes in 1907 to Paris, and she gets invited somehow to Gertrude Stein's salon, you know, and who's there but 25-year-old Picasso. And her comment is, Gertrude Stein spoke to Picasso. I got to speak to the wives. Gertrude Stein spoke to the geniuses. I spoke to the geniuses' wives, and all the geniuses were there, you know, but they were young. You know, there was Braque at some time, and Matisse ended up there. And so it was you know, it's kind of for artists. It was such a fun book to read. It takes place from 1907 to 1933. And I just, you know, it's good nighttime reading. It's not going to keep you up. You can pick it up, you know, if you want to go to sleep, you can just read it for a while. I just found it delightful.
Thanks, Regina. I did put the link in, and I did look at some of the imagery, sort of a mix of Raoul Duffy and maybe interiors. I mean, some of the work.
Not a lot of line, like Dufy had a lot of line, and his color and his line didn't coincide. Hers is much more
Matisse-like, maybe.
similar, you know, simple, but very fluid and beautifully understated and well done. And her illustrations in this book were that way too. And so she had illustrations of all the artists and their, you know, the geniuses and their wives and friends.
You know, it's funny. Just as I was saying, it's Matisse-like. I get to a drawing she did of Matisse, the famous one of Matisse in his bed, drawing with a long stick.
That's right. Oh yeah, that one was in there too. Yeah. And the funny thing is, she uses Google, I think, as his source material, because when I looked up the artist that she drew for the Gertrude Stein book, I saw the original photographs on Google when you look up Braque or one of those guys, and then you see how she painted them, and it was simple and lovely. And anyhow, I'm into that kind of work right now, so I'm enjoying it.
For those of you who don't know, Regina does and has done for 35 years political artwork with sort of expressive drawings, correct?
Yeah, well, you know, I started out, I really love drawing people. I mean, I've been having a good time tonight, you know, just, you know, drawing from the model. I really love life drawing, but when it came to do painting, I said, you know, Matisse did it better. I'm not going to go and paint a model, you know, like we have here. I'm not going to paint a studio model and make an oil painting out of it. I'm just not. And I really had to find some other way to use people. And of course, I was drawn to protest images in the newspapers because they were so dynamic.
You know, I like how you transferred that and you decided to draw something else. I did read something recently about, you know, that thinking process where you say, well, I'm not going to draw a horse because Da Vinci did the horse and I can't do that. And that's sort of like I forget the psychological term, but it's sort of a way of backing out of something that's not the best. for yourself. Now you transferred it to go to
Something
something
that
else.
was contemporary, yeah.
I
yeah.
understand that, but this was like on a YouTube, I watched it, and the example was, you've got to persevere through that thought. You've got to keep drawing the horse, realize it's not Da Vinci's horse, keep doing it, and you will evolve to something. And you will get to
Right.
Matisse painting or to the Regina
Well,
painting.
that happened because I started out with images from the newspapers. And I did my own color versions. It was a black and white New York Times then, So I looked and I found interesting dynamic conflict, people on strike and all that. And then all of a sudden, a friend of mine got arrested for trying to enlist in the Army recruitment station with this group of senior peace people. And so I started following them, and all of a sudden I started taking my own photographs and painting for my own work. And it became very personal, because there I was marching with them and painting them for the next 10 years. So it did evolve naturally, and there I was using people, but in a way that was important because I was always a protester also, since I went to, God, I was in Washington in the 60s, for the Vietnam War, with my little baby on my back, on my shoulders. So it suited all different parts of me is what I'm saying. It fit. And I stayed with it until now.
Can you hold up your drawing for a little more than a second and a half so we can see what you did?
I did tonight?
Yeah, I said that we'll sort of share now. I know you just give us a little more time. That's perfect. It gives us a look.
Wait, I think that's the second page. I did 2 pages. Can you see it?
Yeah, do you like Kirchner, the German expressionist?
Well, of course, I like Kirsch. Who doesn't like Kirschner?
Well, probably Marcus Stabi.
Yeah, no, I like, as I said, I do like, I like to draw it. I like, I've been drawing dogs though, not people, because I go to dog parks when I take a walk. So I'm learning to draw dogs now. Next week.
I think it's nice. It's nice to draw what's around you. I was,
That's what I do.
Yeah.
That really, since COVID, all you could do is take kind of neighborhood walks very carefully, right? So that's where I got started with all that. I'm happy I live in a neighborhood where there's a lot going on.
Shall we move to sort of everyone holding up their work so we can sort of see what was done? Wendy, I see you. Okay, Regina's got it.
Yeah, I showed you,
I mean, my work's kind of light and gestural. I don't know, maybe that's not the best one to see. All right.
The white pan,
Yeah, it's broken.
Let's see.
I'll give you a quick view of
Let's see.
how I did one drawing.
Uh-huh.
I sort of
Yeah.
layer the figures.
one over the other, yeah. Oh, you got her.
I
face.
like that. I
Yeah.
like that very.
Very nice.
Yeah, I sort of learned this when I had a gallery and I did life drawing. One of the artists was incredibly creative, and he would do that. And I didn't employ his technique until like 15 years later or 20 years later, when I started to draw and say, don't turn the page. And I have a very good time
Yeah.
drawing and just drawing one figure and then
On top
turning
of
the
it.
page. I enjoy that, but I like sort of compiling. Very nice.
Yeah, see, I do more,
That's a lovely big form that you have there.
just
Yeah,
more gestural.
Lily, hold
Overall.
it higher.
A little bit higher, Lily, a little bit closer.
I can't see it. It's hard to see it.
Yeah, it's coming out blurry.
Yeah.
I have this filter on my machine here. I don't know.
That's why.
Yes. When they shot,
Believe me, you're not missing a thing.
when they shot Fiddler on the Roof, they used
Oh, there you go.
They used a stocking over the lens for the whole shoot to give that sort of effect. Yeah, that's very different. Very nice. Very
Nice.
nice. Strong line.
I did it with marker. That's unusual,
Uh-huh.
but I figured that's what I would do today.
Yeah, I'm gonna try that. I don't usually use markers.
I got into using those
That's fine.
little pens. Let's see if I have one in the drawer. But yeah, I mean, sometimes I just use, a real big marker. But other times I'll use like a fine point.
A
a
Sharpie?
Micro, yeah. Well, Sharpie makes a small fine point, and I like it. And for me, I'm not an eraser when I draw. I sort of let every line live,
Right.
all the mistakes, all the stuff. And, when I did math, and I was a math major, I like to do it with a pen, which is sort of nuts. It's my way of saying I could do that.
Like
Yeah.
doing a crossword puzzle with a pen, right?
Yeah, that's, I have that kind of brain for that. I do want to mention, Mo, Mo sort of does this for free. If anybody would like to contribute to Mo, is it FOMO@gmail? Is that your handle for PayPal or Venmo or?
The rest of it, I don't know.
But either way, reach out to me if you
555 with whatever goes on it.
reach out to me, because I have contributed. I can't just ask people to do without doing. There's a great Gandhi story. A mother brings a child to see Gandhi, and the mother says, "I want my child to stop eating sugar." And Gandhi says, "Come back in 30 days. And the mother comes back in 30 days with the child and says to Gandhi, "I brought the child back. Why did you have me come back in 30 days? And he says, "Because I had to give up sugar to know what to say to the child."
Oh,
There's something beautiful in that,
yeah.
if we all took our own advice as opposed to giving it out, often we're giving it out because we're not taking it ourselves. And it shows you how you really know something. I want to thank you for coming. Thank you, Mo. Mo the bottom, Mo. I haven't given a look, but we do have several speakers coming up. You could always look on the website, which is basically myname.com, and see who's going to speak. And Mo will be with us all the time.
Great.
Pass the word out to friends if you like. Send me a drawing, just a digital image. And thank you all for coming.
Thanks, Barry. Really nice.
Thanks, Barry.
You're
Bye.
welcome.
Thanks for having us, Barry.
Of course.
Right.
Stop.
Yeah.